chapter 8, verse 26 through 39. Hear these words. They sailed to the region of Gerasenes, which is across the lake from Galilee. When Jesus stepped ashore, he was met by a demon-possessed man from the town. For a long time, this man had not worn clothes or lived in a house, but he lived in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he cried out and fell at his feet, shouting at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, don't torture me." For Jesus had commanded the evil spirit to come out of the man. Many times it has seized him, and though he was chained hand and foot and kept under guard, he had broken his chains and had been driven by the demon into solitary places. Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "Legion," he replied, because many demons had gone into him, and they begged him repeatedly not to order them to go into the abyss. A large herd of pigs were feeding there on the hillside. The demons begged Jesus to let them go into them, and he gave them that permission. When the demons came out of the man, they went into the pigs, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. When those tending the pigs saw what had happened, they ran off and reported this in the town and the countryside. And the people went out to see what had happened. When they came to Jesus, they found the man from whom the demons had gone out, sitting at Jesus' feet, dressed and in his right mind. And they were afraid. Those who had seen it told the people how the demon-possessed man had been cured. Then all the people of the region of Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them, get out of town, because they were overcome with fear. So he got into the boat and he left. This is the word of God for the people of God. Praise be to God. For Father's Day today, I'm going to share a little bit of personal stuff with you, in addition to addressing the scripture. So I titled the talk today, "What Happens When You're Not Prepared for What Happens?" You ever been that way? How do you handle what happens when you're not prepared for what happens? Well, sometimes not very well at all, do we? We just don't seem to be able to do that. Before I get into that, I want to talk a little bit about a movie. Many of you might have seen it. It's called Cheaper by the Dozen, starring Steve Martin. What a hilarious movie that was. You see, there are numerous scenes in the movie that illustrate how one father tries to take care of things while his wife is away. We all know how that goes, don't we? Pure chaos. This movie is about a father who has just gotten his dream job of coaching football at his college alma mater. But this job change calls for him, his wife, their 12 children, yes, I said 12, to move from their beloved home and community in order for Dad to get his wish fulfilled, to fulfill his dream. No sooner had they settled into their new home than his wife, who has been writing a book on how to successfully raise 12 children, is off to New York City to clinch a deal to have her book published. She learns also that the deal involves obligatory cross-country tours or engagements to promote the book. Meanwhile, Coach Dad is back home trying to handle this tribe and his new job at the university as well. The truth is, there's just too much going on for anyone to manage all of this. In a last-minute desperate attempt to salvage everything, Coach Dad comes up with a plan. He has the football team go over to the house for the briefing sessions, and then he takes the children who are not already in school to work with him at the university for the workout sessions. trying to work and take care of the kids at both home and school turns out to be just another disaster. One after another. In fact, things are so messed up that Coach Dad finally resorts to lying to his wife on the phone. We all know how that goes. He tells her that, oh, everything's under control, when actually everything is in utter chaos. Meanwhile, the university officials and the local media representatives are raising the same question. Can this man coach two teams? The one at home and the one at the university? Well, there's ample evidence that he can. As I look back at my own fathering days, I don't believe I was ever in over my head as much as this dad was. But then I didn't have 12 children. And a wife on a book tour across the U.S. However, one day in particular does stand out in my memory. You see, Robin and I had moved. And we moved from our country home in Grass Lake. And I went off to my dream job. I love marketing and advertising. I have a degree. And so my dream job came up at U.S. Postal Headquarters in L'Enfant Plaza, across the 14th Street Bridge in Washington, D.C. And I had moved from being a letter carrier in the post office after I got back out of the Army. I had moved into management within 3 years. I had moved to regional and district jobs within 5 years. This was my dream job, I thought, to go to U.S. Postal Service headquarters and be able to be a national marketing analyst. Little did I know that this job was a little bit more involved than what I thought. I wasn't quite in over my head, except when they found out that I also had sales experience. They decided to send me across the hall, too. And I was assigned the 10 largest accounts in the U.S. American Express, Mobil Oil, Kodak Corporation, all these big people, Visa, and all these credit card companies. You know that Express Mail logo that you see out there? I was one of the two-man team that designed that. We designed the national tracking system that reads and scans barcodes to track your shipments as they go nationwide. It was my dream job. But it involved living out of airports and hotels. Now granted, when we moved out there, Robin, who had a successful career with Consumers Energy, in fact, she was the executive secretary to the vice president of, what was it, Midland Nuclear Power?
No.
What was it?
No, it was Midland Project is what it was then.
Oh, Midland Project. Anyway, it was kind of hurting. And my daughter was 3 months old. 3 months old. We moved our whole family out to this new culture. You know, coming from the little town to the big city. You talk about culture shock, especially for her. For me, it wasn't so bad. I had been in Chicago and many other places and things like that. But you see, one day, it was a Sunday, I believe, I was backing out of the driveway. We lived about 30 miles south of D.C. Backing out of the driveway to take another one of my 3, 4, or 5 day trips. I was leaving out of Dulles International to fly to Dallas. Let's see, I was going to change time zones once that day. There were some days where I changed time zones 3 times. And taking the red-eye special from LA to D.C. at midnight was interesting. But anyway, that was the lifestyle, and that was where I was at. I'm backing out of this driveway, and I'm kind of stressed out. Robin's holding the baby, and April's just crying. And little Jason's about this high, and he's hanging on to Mom, crying. Mom's probably crying too. And I was, but I didn't want to show it. I was tough. I wanted to be a tough guy. Anyway, I get to the airport. I'm all stressed out. I get on the plane. I put these earphones on. I'm going to listen to some music and relax. So I ordered a drink. Sat back down. Guess what song came out? Cats in the Cradle. You heard that song? Wow. Who do you suppose was talking to me?
Not Harry Chapin.
That's right. God will speak through us in many ways. He's spoken to me through music on many times in my life. This was one of them. I share this on Father's Day because it demonstrates a little bit what happened in our scripture today. When I got home, we talked a little bit about quitting the postal service, moving the family back to Michigan. Apparently, little did we know that our little son, Jason, in kindergarten, he overheard that conversation. So, I don't know if it was the next day or a couple days later, Robin's at home. She runs this daycare. We couldn't afford to pay daycare out there. So she opened our home up to bring extra income in, running daycare for 5, sometimes 6. I didn't appreciate her until I had to be home one day with all those kids. Anyway, to make a long story short, she hears the doorbell ring. She goes to the door, looks down, there's little Jason standing at the door. What are you doing here? You're supposed to be in school. Little did we know, nor did the school know, that Jason decided he was going to walk home. He was afraid we were going to pack up and leave him, and we would be gone when he got home. I'm sure that's what he said. You don't know what, you do not want to know what Robin told the school when she called me. I'll let her fill you in on that. Needless to say, the school changed their policies and locked their doors shortly after. We all know what it feels like to be in over our heads, don't we? I think the demon-possessed man in Luke's story probably knew it better than most, for he was living in over his head. What happens when you're not prepared for what happens? It can take various forms. In this healing story, we see a variety of reactions. It all begins when Jesus arrives from the district of Gerasenes. We're not exactly sure just where this village is. There's no real scholarly agreement on the exact location of the town. But wherever it is, Jesus had just arrived by boat on the Sea of Galilee. No sooner has Jesus stepped ashore and he's met with this man possessed by demons. By the time Jesus meets him, the man has been ill for a very long time. From all signs, the man was quite a case. For one thing, he lived in a graveyard, the tombs, and he ran around naked, yelling and screaming, something like those little kids. So to protect him from himself and to protect the villagers from what he might do to them, the man had to be bound in chains and fetters. Except the man was so violent and strong that even the chains were not able to hold him. He could bust them right loose. To put it mildly, the man was not prepared for a visit by Jesus. And he asked him, "What have you done to me?" Jesus, the Son of the Most High God, demons shouting through the man's voice. So in control are they of the man's interior being. It's apparent that the demons are threatened by the very presence of Jesus. The demons feel that Jesus is out to get them. You see, they said, "Don't torture me." The reason they say this is because Jesus had already commanded these unclean spirits to come out of the man. Jesus stands out as the one person in the story who is prepared for whatever happens. Jesus knows the way to get the upper hand in this explosive situation. You see, once you know the name of the demons, you have them under your control. Jesus says to this demon-possessed man, "What is your name? What is your name?" Now, in many of the Bible translations, they have this demonic reply, "Legion." I prefer another military descriptive word that William Barclay uses in his own personal translation, where it says, "My name is a regiment." You see, at the time of the Emperor Augustus, a regiment was made up of 6,000 troops. Now, can you imagine 6,000 demons inside you? There's a story of a Catholic nun where she tells about the time she came from the grocery store in Detroit, Michigan. This is a true story. Her apartment was in a rather run-down part of the city. A pretty dangerous part of the city. And as she was getting her groceries out of the car, this tiny lady looked up and saw a gang of rough rogues headed toward her with what she felt was the intention to steal her groceries and make off with them. Maybe more. As they approached her, she looked them in the eye, and in a strong, confident voice, she said, "Now, Tyrone, help me up these steps with these groceries." One of the boys, kind of shocked face on his look, replied, "How did you know my name was Tyrone?" The nun explained, "Everyone in Detroit knows who you are. Now, you and your friends help me up the stairs with these groceries." Which they did instantly. When the nun was asked about how she knew the boy's name was Tyrone, she laughed and replied, "With that many boys on the streets of Detroit, I just knew that one of them had to be Tyrone." But you see, the point here is just by saying that name, she cast out her fear and their hatred. Just as Jesus did with the troubled man. When the demons heard Jesus calling them by name, they were terrified and begged him not to send them to the abyss. The abyss is another name for hell, or the place where nobody wants to go, not even the demons. Now, it just so happened that there was a herd of pigs nearby. And the demons makes a suggestion to Jesus that they be driven into the pigs instead of the abyss. So without so much of a hesitation, Jesus agrees. At their request, Jesus drives the demons out of the man's mind and into the herd of pigs. Now, the Gospel of Mark says that there were 2,000 pigs. But Luke is content to reduce the number to a more manageable herd. Luke leaves the exact number to our imaginations. But by driving the demons into the pigs, in an ironic twist, the demons get precisely what they were trying to avoid. You see, when the demons took over the pigs stampeded over the hill. They ran headlong into the deep blue sea and were drowned in the abyss. Now, some people, when they read this story, become worried about the fate of the pigs. Other people become concerned about the loss of income to the pigs' owners. And still others are concerned about what this action says about Jesus. They don't think it reflects very well on him. But those kinds of questions push the meaning of the story a little too far. If you have to have an answer for those kinds of questions, I suppose, you might say that Jesus felt that the sanity of one man was worth the loss of all of those pigs and whatever income they might have brought for the owner. But as I say, that's not something Luke's story is interested in. The incident did, however, create quite a reaction with the townspeople, especially those in charge of the herd. The herdsmen were certainly not prepared for what happened. They immediately ran away and told everybody else. Then the townspeople came out to see for themselves, and from their reaction, we see that they also were not prepared for what they ran into. They were not prepared to see this previously insane and violent man, whom they feared so much as to put him in chains, now sitting quietly and in his right mind, listening to every word Jesus had to say. They weren't prepared for it. So startled were the townspeople that they asked Jesus to go away, leave town, get out of here. Especially those in charge of the herd. You see, all their lives they had been dealing with this sick man. They may not have handled things in the best way, but at least they felt they knew what to do while he was sick. Now that Jesus had come and stirred things up and healed him, they didn't know what to make of it, nor what to do about it. Of course, they could have rejoiced with the man and thanked Jesus for what he had done for him. But then, to have done that, they would have had to have been a lot more healthy themselves. They would have had to have been a lot better off in mind, in body, in spirit, than they previously were. You see, sick themselves, they could not deal with this new healthy one in their midst. Their natural response was to reject this new foreign element that had come into their lives, much as the body sometimes is inclined to reject a transplanted organ. They simply were not prepared to handle the man's well-being. You see, it required too much change on their part. Family counselors see it from time to time. Sadly, if a family is too dysfunctional, when one family member begins to gain some measure of freedom and health, it often shakes up the other family members. Rather than undergo the change required of themselves, they unwittingly ignore or even refute that anything good is taking place in the person receiving the counseling. As for Jesus, rather than stay in what is evidently a hopeless environment, Jesus went away as they requested. He moved on to a town that will give better reception to his ministry. In gratitude for his newfound peace of mind, a man healed of the unclean spirit begs Jesus to let him go with him. Listen to Jesus' reply. He says, "Return to your home and declare how much God has done for you." Return to your home and declare, tell your story, share what God has done for you. And that's exactly what the man did. So what happens when we're not prepared for what happens? In the movies, it all tends to end up happily ever after, the so-called Hollywood ending. at least in Cheaper by the Dozen, the ending is a little more realistic. This father finally comes to his senses when he realizes that what an impact fulfilling his dream has had on the rest of the family. Fulfilling his and his wife's dream has almost cost them their marriage and their family. That was the one thing he was not prepared for. He was not prepared for what his actions did to the rest of the ones he loved. The story, Coach Dad is now in his right mind. He now knows that he prefers the name Dad to the name Coach. Now, sometimes we're only prepared for what happens when we realize that we're not as well prepared as we thought we were. Then at other times things turn out better than we may have expected. Certainly did that day for the man whose name was A. Regiment when he met Jesus. It even happened for one dad who was backing out of the driveway 20 plus years ago. You see, the demons that were inside of me, he cast out. And I came to my senses. And we moved back to Michigan, Hollywood ending here. You see, what I thought was my dream, where I'm coming from, I was thinking of myself, not my family. And I hope you dads pick up on that. You see, my dream became our family's nightmare. Do I get a name after my wife on that? Oh, yeah. I want to share something from Toby Keith's book entitled My List. You ever heard that song? It talks about father. At the end of it is a quote by George Eliot. And I'm just going to read a portion of it because it kind of sums up where I'm coming from in this talk. I believe that life is full of joy, and love, and beauty. I know that I was created to experience all of that good in life. Abundance, success, positive recognition, good health, happiness, and fulfillment. I choose to think the thoughts and do the things that give my life these qualities, and so surround myself with those that recognize and appreciate these qualities in me and in my life. Thank you, God, for giving me this chance to live this wonderful life. You see, when he cast out the demons, he gave this man the chance to live an abundant life, a life he had not experienced before. He can give you that same chance. You just have to let go of your ego, let go of your pride, and say, thank you, Lord. May God add his blessing to this work.